Hey everybody, Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses here with the mochamoguls.com. I'm here with James Penn, the Tailor Made Man. How are you doing today, James?
I'm doing excellent. If I was any better, I might need about two or three of me.
Awesome. James, I was just saying before we started recording that, I noticed that, well, first of all, I've interviewed you and your lovely wife before for one of your brands that I heavily endorse and support, which is around marriage and family. But today I wanted to talk about another up-and-coming brand that intrigued me, the Tailor Made Man. And I wanted to know what that was about and what the principles are surrounding that. So you can just, enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. First off, let me say thanks again for having me on. It's been fun every time that we've got a chance to talk. And my wife and I, our business, the Penn agency, we have a few different umbrellas. By profession, I'm a marketer, and by passion, we are marriage educators with Marriage by Design. And so I really understand brands, and the Tailor Made Man is a brand that is launching. We're kind of in pre-launch and developing that right now. And it really came from us understanding, first and foremost, that family and marriage is a very, very integral and important part for us fixing the issues and the elements inside of our community, our society. And so as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, I'm always about making adjustments. And whenever you talk about marriage, you talk about relationships, women are going to flock to that. Women are that. All you got to say is marriage. Oh, we're doing the seminar. When the women are there, and the men are ghosts, are absent. So in making the adjustment, I really was examining why that is, and why don't men gravitate toward that? A lot of times they sense it as going to be a session to beat up on them, and a lot of times it is. And so it's understandable why men don't want to be involved in that. So I kind of went macro and looked at it from a bigger picture, and what are men looking after? What would they gravitate towards? What would resonate with them? And myself, I like a nice tailored suit. I like, looking fly and all of those type of things, GQ, if you will. And I think a lot of men gravitate toward that. Right. It's the imagery. So that's the marketing side of it. But then, behind that, when you think of a tailor-made suit, everything is custom to you. And what we really have to do is start to custom design every area of our life. So in synopsis, all of that to say, the Tailor Made Man is really about custom designing every area of life. And most men are going to start off thinking business, and we're going to talk about business because that's an important part of family. Mm-hmm. And so, business from the economic standpoint to the physical standpoint, whether that is fitness or health. And then from a mental standpoint, whether that is socially, whether that's mental health, whether that's emotional health, which starts to lead into the spiritual elements, just every area of your life. We need to custom design that area of your life, including the family. So I think talking about it from a holistic approach of economics, of physical, of mental, and family will resonate with more men. And then we can even still be able to get into that core element that we really know is the solution, which is strong marriages, strong families. But again, talk about it from a more holistic approach in every area of a man's life.
Absolutely. I want to go off on a slight tangent and ask you this question, which you may not know the answer because it doesn't.
I'll make it up.
It doesn't apply to you, but I'm seeing a huge resistance to marriage among Black men. Can you speak to that? I know that doesn't apply to you because you're married and have been for a while, and you have beautiful children and a lovely wife. So it's not you specifically, but I thought since you're a man and you're in that space, you could kind of speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, and this is, even starting off in the beginning and explaining that I'm a marriage educator. Mm-hmm. I'm very intentional with words. We're not counselors, we're not therapists, we're educators. Mm-hmm. I think the reason why is because a lot of men haven't been properly educated on family and marriage and the benefits of it. And so when you're left to your own devices or left to society just telling you through media, through social media, through a failure and a breakdown of the family, which we have to realize, by the way, for our community, hasn't just been on accident. There has been a breakdown in family. I think you even shared a post some time back about how family and the breakdown of family has been way more of a detriment to our current state than even slavery. And it's really interesting because that breakdown of family is true. It's higher for us than it is for anybody else. And I'm not saying that to blame us in totality, because there is social engineering that made that happen, intentionally. So through this social engineering, we have been duped. We've been hoodwinked. We've been run amok in the ideas of what marriage is about. So a lot of Black men, they don't see the benefit of marriage. They only see the detriment. They only see, you hear about, men saying, well, she can leave me, she can take my money. Obviously the glorification of a promiscuous lifestyle, and even from talking about every area of your life, a mental and emotional standpoint and a social standpoint, you start learning even as a young boy, the cool guy, and to get the social equity amongst my peers is the guy that can get the girl, that can have the rumors about whether it's kissing the girl in elementary school or even further in middle school, and the more notches you have on your belt, they get social equity. So now your self-image is even starting to be tied to these things. This is all a miseducation. The glorification of the sex life of a single male, which is ridiculous. And that's a breakdown of education. As I've studied this and have talked with single men, if you have a healthy marriage, the sex life in a healthy marriage is way better than a single guy who's living a lifestyle. And the sexual act is actually anticlimactic. But we don't have that education on that. Why? Because of social engineering, because there's an intentional breakdown of our family unit and wanting to destroy that. And so when left to our own devices without having anything intentionally combating the social engineering, men are going to shun away from marriage. So this really is the answer to that. The Tailor Made Man is really the answer to, this state right here.
All right. So I'm all ears. I want to hear about some of the qualities or the principles or the values of the Tailor Made Man.
Again, it's about operating excellence in every area of your life. And to me, I define excellence as an uncompromising commitment to quality. Having an uncompromised commitment to quality. And the issue that I see is that there are a lot of men that find themselves in the state because we're all striving to be better. So nobody's looking to be a slouch, but they find themselves in a state where they're a public success and then they're private failure. Publicly, they might have business on point. So let me start there, because most men are going to gravitate. If we're talking about, okay, let's be suited and booted and let's be on our game, let's have our pockets right. Men are going to gravitate toward that. They see, they see a man that is in a tailored suit, getting out of a nice car. They're like, that's what I want my life to be like. Why? Again, even going back to some of the social clout of being able to attract females. You think, well, that's going to attract females, so I want to be like that. I want to have my money right. Let's be about these dollars. Okay, got it. Good. All of that. But while we're doing that, we're privately failing in our character. We're probably failing even maybe in our health. We're probably failing in our social lives. It's a lot of areas where we're really, really breaking down. So excellence across the board. Yeah, be excellent in the business. We're going to talk about that. We're talking about how to improve ourselves economically, how to have our finances on point, how to have investments right. But while we're doing that, and you're grinding and you're putting in work, don't let your family be failing. You have children that are being involved in gangs. Eric Thomas, somebody I listen to a lot, and he was talking about in one of the videos I was listening to recently, how a lot of men misconstrued his message about beast mode and going out there and out working and winning. And they thought that you just talk about one area of life. You're just talking about business. And now you're failing over here in your marriage because you're getting outworked. Yeah, you putting that work in business, but you're getting outworked in your marriage. And so for me, my wife is never going to be lauded away by some man because he's complimenting her and telling her she's pretty. Like, it'll be long after I've told her she's pretty. Right. I'm not going to get outworked. Right. I'm taking care of her children, and I'm taking care of her. I brought her home from her job. So nothing that a man's going to be able to do is going to be able to compete with that. My daughters are not going to be able to fall victim to a lot of the things that you see young girls are being exposed to. Why? Because I'm not going to get outworked when it comes to that. You know,
Right.
oh, that's a gang problem. The young boys are getting involved in gangs. No, you're getting outworked by the gang. They're showing your son more love than you are. So you're getting outworked in that area, or you're getting outworked in your health. You're not taking care of your health. So all of these different areas. Don't be excellent in your economics and in your business and in your finances just so it looks good on the surface, but then privately you getting outworked in all these other areas. You have no excellence in any of these other areas. You're public success, and now you're private failure.
And you know, I would even take that excuse me, a step further and say some of the people who we think are public successes financially are still failing financially privately.
Right.
You know, because there's unfortunately, you know, we live in a time where it seems like the only, well, I wouldn't say the only because I don't participate, but you know, the only way to impress people, or the way that people impress each other, is with things, you know. Mm-hmm. So people can give the appearance of having things that they don't have, and then they really are failing in every single way. I'm not sure how you even keep that up.
We're in the Instagram era. So you can go to the bank and take out $2,000 and bring it home and throw it on the bed and take a picture. And meanwhile, that was for all your monthly bills, and go put it back in and pay your bills. Right. and posing with other people's cars, or their car that's, posting old pictures, what was the Bow Wow challenge, right?
Right.
People, have the ability to do all those different things. And so
for those who don't know what the Bow Wow incident was, I believe he, showed a picture of himself next to a private jet, and then a few minutes later was seen in a commercial flight, sitting in coach or something like that. Not even in first class, I think.
That's the word on the street, right? We weren't there, so
yeah,
we don't know. But that's what the evidence. Evidence looks that way.
It certainly took off, where people were like, "Oh my God, the Bow Wow challenge!" Yeah. And I, like you said, I'm glad you brought some integrity into it. We don't know either way, but it seems to resonate with a lot of people that people will pretend to be one thing when there's something else.
Right.
But I mean, you can add more things as we go along in terms of lining them up with these principles and educating us about what it means to be the tailor-made man. But one of the things that I just wanted to add was, I like that you're talking about, you're really essentially talking about manhood, mm-hmm. which I believe, again, is a lost art, or something that we've began to devalue, right along with devaluing women and womanhood. And now we're supposed to subscribe to this fuzzy, vague, gender blurring thing that I personally refuse to participate in. So I'm glad we can bring in somebody who can be clear and concise about manhood and how to, create a life of success as a man, and then, you have counterparts who talk about womanhood and creating, and I think I mentioned it before that, well, actually, I haven't mentioned in the segment, I will be, talking to your wife as well, separately from you, and we'll talk about more things about womanhood and things like that. But I also was very excited to hear what your take is going to be on the current news cycle, which it seems to be cycling over and over as the weeks go by. And we have this, I guess right now, the boogeyman is sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual impropriety. So what are your initial thoughts about this climate?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about this climate from that standpoint. And let me first go back to your initial point about this void that is present about talking about manhood. You mentioned femininity. There are women speaking to femininity, and it's beautiful. You see a lot of educators out there who are speaking to what it is to embrace true femininity, what that's about. And, really valuing women, because there is a devalue of women. When you have a climate where the value of a woman, the value of a woman is the fact that you can do anything that a man can do. Well, if your value as a woman is that you could be a man, do you really value women?
A woman, no. Thank you for putting that into words. Thank you.
So if we truly embrace and value women, which I think this goes back to a failure of the man. A lot of the reason the whole feminist movement was a failure of the man to appreciate her separate but equally demanding role, equally important role. It's a separate role. And nonetheless, it is very, very valuable and it's needed. If we had held that in high regard and high esteem, women wouldn't have been looking to abandon that post of being the homemaker, of being the wife and the mother. They wouldn't have been so eager to abandon that post and take on to themselves the more seemingly exciting world of being in the marketplace and going out there and being a, quote, boss chick and all of these type of ridiculous ideas that we see blurring the gender roles, as you said. So there's plenty of women that are speaking to that now, but where are the men speaking to manhood? There's a void there. And in this climate right now, you even have the educators in the relationship space, the marriage space, even the male ones are speaking to the women. And it drives me up the wall. You see the men who are and let me make this distinction as well while I'm on it. While I'm on the soapbox here, while I'm on it, we are marriage educators, my wife and I. And we're not relationship experts. We're not dating experts. Of course, dating is a part of the process to gather data to, lead to a relationship, which the ultimate goal should still be marriage. So we're not looking to educate people on how to date better or how to, about relationships, because that gives room to improper relationships. No, the goal is marriage. So yes, we will have education in the midst of that helps you in the dating process and in your relationships. But if it's not leading toward marriage, that's not what we're speaking toward.
Right.
So in that whole arena, you got men that are speaking to women about how to date better. Men speaking to women about their relationships. And again, a lot of this is, really talking to women about the failures of men. Why? Because it's going to sell to women. Yeah, you tell about how, horrible the men are. And you got men that are making a living off that who, by the way, mostly chronically single. They're chronically single, but they're telling you about the relationship. Okay, that's interesting. And now where the men are going away from that, this is contributing to the problem, the social engineering of Black men don't even want to be involved in that arena. They don't want to be involved in a good relationship, in a marriage. Why? Because it's so slanted against them. So if I'm a man, why wouldn't I speak to the men? Yeah, sure. There's times where I speak to the women, and usually it's not about the man. See, here's the difference. When I speak to women, I might give them a male perspective on what they need to be altering and changing. But I focus mainly on speaking to men about how to man up. And so in this climate right now, there's a void, and some of this void is leading to the, what you're saying, with sexual misconduct and all of the things that are happening in Hollywood, or I think you call it Hollyweird, right? Sometimes, right? All the stuff you're seeing in Hollyweird and with celebrities and all of this misconduct. Why? Because there's a void. Haven't been talking about what that true manhood is. And, I'm really at a point, Nomalanga, where I really judge the measure of a man based off of highly his interaction and how he treats women. Yeah. If the man has misconduct, if he's not treating women properly, I'm gonna look at him a little differently. I'm gonna be more hesitant to even want to do business with him, because it says a lot about your character. Because women are, I think you've already kind of pointed to it, and maybe it was pre-show, but women are that weaker vessel, if you will. And if you're a stronger vessel and you're taking advantage of the weaker vessel, then how are you going to operate if you get the upper hand in business even? And so these are just little character things, and this is about manhood. And so I see it really having a ubiquitous effect. It's touching every area of life and society right now.
Right. We kind of started to talk about this, and we agreed to talk more about it on air, about, this is starting. And I remember posting maybe a couple of weeks ago, I said, this looks familiar, it smells familiar. And I referenced the drug, quote unquote, epidemic, I think you and I may be too young to really understand what happened, or at least have firsthand experience of
firsthand. Yeah.
Epidemic and what happened there. But we do certainly know what it was. And it was, there's a drug epidemic. Let's lock up everybody who's involved in this so that we can rid ourselves of this. And in theory, that sounds great. If it was, I live in a townhouse, so we have a townhouse community. So if I heard that with all the children and young adults we have here, that somebody was coming here and selling drugs, and now my kids are in an environment of drugs, and somebody came to me and said, look, we're going to clean these drugs out of your community, I would absolutely be, oh, yes, please, how can I help? Let me tell my husband that you're doing this so he can get involved. I would be on board, you see. But the problem with the drug epidemic is it wasn't really a drug epidemic. It was just a strategy now. We're realizing too late to lock up what the people who created the epidemic viewed as undesirables, people that just didn't want in society. And it was a way to round them up and lock them up forever, for the most part. So now, and I shared this with you earlier, when I hear that there's a sexual harassment and rape and whatever epidemic, and every day, not every week, every day we're waking up to a new victim and a new perp, I'm already sitting up like, oh, wait a minute, see? So what do you think about that? Yeah, where is this going?
Where is this going? No doubt. So it's really a lot of layers to this thing. And you talked about, where we started from, and they created the problem, exacerbated the problem. And then, here's the solution. And we have to first and foremost understand and realize, be very aware that there is an intentional effort to exterminate us. Right. And there's multiple means to that. It's locking us up. It's giving us the drugs, push the drugs into our community, and then saying the solution is to arrest the men, to take them out of the household, to be able to be the male presence for the next generation, lock them up, then put their sons and daughters into on Ritalin because they have diagnosed with ADHD. So you're giving them the same drug that you locked the father up for selling. And that element and that environment, the response is, this is a criminal problem. But now, like you said, it's a public health crisis, an issue. And so we have seen this. We've seen this breakdown be able to infiltrate our communities and our families. Why? Because of failure of the man again, and us not being on point on our job. Even when you have the abortion statistics that are showing that the number one cause of death for Black people since Roe v. Wade is abortion. And why is that? Because of the breakdown of the family. You don't have people going to get abortions as much when you don't have the rates of pregnancies out of wedlock. So it all comes back down to this breakdown. So first, we got to understand that this is intentional. Everything is intentional, from the abortion epidemic to the drug criminalization, the war on drugs. This is an attempt to exterminate us. And so they're going to come up with more creative, clever ways. Well, we got the abortion thing. We got the drug thing. But now, as you said, we have the hashtag Me Too. We have the sexual misconduct. This is a big problem. This is an epidemic nowadays. Right. And it's interesting, just like the drug epidemic, when it's one race, it's a public health crisis when they need help. But when it's another demographic, it's a criminal element. Well, just a year ago, Donald Trump is talking about grabbing women wherever you want to grab them. You ain't got to ask; you just do it because you're famous.
And he has a pile of complaints.
A pile of complaints, all kinds of. And here's the thing, I've heard accusations. You watch the news networks that his supporters, people that still support him, be talking about, it's slander, it's libel. It's his own words. You don't even have to go to anybody else. You can listen to what he said about walking into locker rooms with, underage girls getting dressed. You can listen to his words about grabbing people in sexual misconduct. But in that situation, you're rewarded with becoming the commander-in-chief, okay, and the president of the United States of America.
Right.
But it's interesting to see how is it going to be if we drum up this as it's a major crisis, a major issue, and then you start to have people who don't look like Donald Trump. You have people who look different.
Bill Cosby.
Right. It look like Bill Cosby is treated a lot differently. So we have to be very, very aware and very careful as men. This goes back to, we better be on our manhood. We better be operating in high levels of character to not even let our good be evil spoken of, to make sure that we don't even have the misconception of impropriety, because we're never judged at the same standards. And so it is interesting seeing how this is being drummed up. And, all of this, not to diminish that there are people who are victims of sexual harassment, right, sexual assault, things of that nature. But when we get on our manhood, when we custom design and we're a tailor-made man, and we're making sure I'm protecting my wife, I'm protecting my daughter, and we're there and we're present and we're doing things in the right order, we're going to minimize to a very, very high degree. You can never totally eliminate tragedy from happening, but you put the odds in your favor of it not happening in your family. And then you're also preparing the next generation of our young men not to fall into the traps that are being set for them.
Right. I'm glad you brought up the victims, because, our conversation is talking about this issue in a very abstract way, but we do have to recognize that there are women who genuinely have been, assaulted, raped, and had things happen to them that are just horrific, But it does also bring in another point that you brought up, where you say part of manhood, which, I really would love to see it done in my lifetime, but I'm realistic enough to see that full restoration of family, full restoration of wealth. It likely won't happen in my lifetime, but I want it to. I'm hopeful that at least we'll make some strides. But part of that, yes, it is men standing up and saying, this is not going to happen in my house. It's not going to happen in my family. And it's not going to happen in my community. It's not going to happen in any area of my influence. And unfortunately, that's not always true, because a lot of women are left unguarded, unprotected, and pedophiles and other kinds of, what do you call them?
Perpetrators.
Yeah, perpetrators are always there. And they know where to go. They know where women are not protected. They know where to go to get their victims. So it's part of it. We cannot have this conversation about women being subjected to these things without having the conversation of saying who was supposed to be protecting them, who was supposed to be looking out for them, especially when a lot of these stories are women crying on camera saying, this happened to me 20 years ago when I was 15, 16, 17, 20, whatever it is. My question is always, wow, so, where was your dad? Where was your brother? Where was your husband? Whoever, because, and this is not, a dig at anybody who doesn't have a husband, but I remember just recently on Facebook, I said something to the effect of, I am around people with such good manners that I just can't stand women who have no manners and are nasty and what have you. And somebody jumped on the post and she's like, oh, I can't stand men who are like that either. And I said to her, I said, listen, the men like that don't even come near me. My husband wouldn't allow it. And the conversation ended. But the thing is, it is the truth. Mm-hmm. And I have to wonder about that with, these, never mind just being nasty to you, but, sexually harassing, assaulting, violating in different ways. You do have to wonder where is the male protection? Where is it, James?
So let me speak to the women for just a moment, because you see a lot of women, Black women, I'm talking to our sisters, that are talking about the whole strong, independent, I don't need no man idea. And I'm not going to harp on it too much, because again, fortunately, we have a lot of women who are speaking to true femininity and are dispelling those ideas. But ladies, you got to really, really understand that men are acquiescing to your request. Right. You're saying you don't need no man. You're saying you're strong. You're saying you're independent. And I don't know any other race of people on the planet where if you ask the men to describe their women, they describe their women as strong. When I think of strong, I think of, look up the definition of strong, rigid, and hard. Like, that's not what I want my wife to be. Right. Okay. So women, you gotta, stop projecting that, because men are just acquiescing to your request and saying, oh, well, if that's what you want to be independent. You don't need me. Okay, cool. You don't need me. Now, simultaneously, men, let me speak to the men. We have to be bigger than that and realize that most women who are speaking that way are doing it from a place of hurt, because her father was absent. And so now it was a protection mechanism that her failure of a man in her life, the first man in her life, caused her mother to have a protection mechanism to say, girl, make sure you don't rely on no man. Make sure you get your own. You don't need no man. And that's natural response, because women are nurturers and they're protectors. They want to protect their daughter not to have to go through the pain that they went through. And so men, you have to, brothers, we got to be big enough to see past a woman saying that and be able to realize that deep down, and I don't care, every woman deep down still has that little girl inside, even on that exterior hard shell, that she does want a man to lead her and guide her and protect her and provide for her.
Ooh, the feminists gonna get you.
Hey, they could come on with it. They come on with it. Because deep down, if they felt that they could truly trust in a man that was going to be there and take that burden off her shoulders to be the leader, the guide, the protector, the provider, and wasn't going to abuse that situation in her life, what woman would not want that? Right. A lot of women have just given up on the fact that it exists. So we have to see past that. Even when a woman is saying, oh, I'm strong and independent, that guess what? If she saw the example of a true masculine man, that she would embrace that. My wife was very much that strong, independent, go get yours type of woman. Guilty. Right? So because I know you had the education as well, right? Nomalanga got the master's degree.
Yeah. Guilty.
And, yeah. But when you see true masculinity, true femininity starts coming out, a true masculine, not hyper masculinity.
Right.
Not this archaic idea. I'm man, you woman, I say you do. No, that's not what a man is about. It's about leading.
Dumbass.
Right. It's about leadership.
Yes.
And we know leadership, part of leadership is having buy-in. So how do you have your wife to have buy-in to your vision and your plan for the family and things of that nature? Not demanding, but commanding. Right. Not demanding respect, but you command respect just by how you operate. It just brings that out of her. Right. And so, the men got to step up in that area. Not sure exactly what the initial question was at this point.
No, but you're making really good points, because I mean, the question started with the whole sexual harassment climate that we're in. And I believe, I mean, it's everywhere. I live in Massachusetts. The government here has its own scandal. The Massachusetts, under the governor, there's a scandal here. It's everywhere. Everybody's coming out of the woodworks, and every woman is now saying, well, not every, but every woman who can think of a time where she was even remotely made to feel, harassed or uncomfortable in any way by a man is coming out to say, hey, look, I got something to say too. So it's becoming, and you know how it is, has this domino effect. So
that absence, that void. Let me connect the dots and land the plane on this whole point here.
Right.
When you have that man in the life, would it first be the father? How does that? If the father's there, present, operating properly and guiding his daughters on both modesty and her levels of expectations and what she values in terms of character, like the whole R. Kelly thing that we see, and it's like, where are these young girls, where are their fathers? Are they present? And a lot of these situations you see in there, they're not present. Or even if they are present, it's not just enough to be present. What are you instilling? And I know that might get some ear sparked, and people might be upset when I say the modesty thing, because you're saying a woman, it's up to her to not be assaulted. Let's just be clear. You can provoke something and still mean it's not deserved.
Right.
If I leave, I have a pretty nice automobile. If I leave the keys running in it and the door open, unattended, in a high crime area, it doesn't make it right for somebody to steal my car.
In fact, when you call the insurance company, they're going to ask you, was the car locked? Where were the keys and all this other stuff? Because they're trying to see which part, how much of a part you played in it.
Life is about risk management.
Right.
When I get in the car, I don't expect, you know what, this is going to be the trip I get into an accident. Let me put my seatbelt on. But I put my seatbelt on not because I plan on getting in an accident, because I know the possibility exists.
Right.
So let me be very clear. I'm not saying that a woman dressed in a certain way or operating a certain way means she deserves to be assaulted, raped, or harassed whatsoever. What I am saying is there are things that women can do to put the odds in their favor and have risk management to minimize that, such as how they carry themselves and how they operate. But even beyond that, what do they value? Are they looking for the type of young girl that is placed so high value on a man because he's a celebrity? So that's a failure of the father in instilling and guiding when it comes to proper principles, values, and character. She should be looking for a man of character, not a man because he's famous,
right,
or because, you know, even he has, you know, has money. Okay. And I know a man is to be a provider, but just because he's rich and he's famous, that's what your daughter's attracted to. You failed to guide her properly in that area. So you have the absence of the father in that respect. And then, like you said, you know, from a husband standpoint, women, there's certain things that are not going to happen to Nomalanga. They're not going to happen to my wife, Yolanda Penn, because you have truly masculine men as your husband. Right. And let me finish with being completely transparent and having integrity and saying, again, this doesn't completely eliminate the possibilities because tragedy happens. It can happen to anybody, even with the best preparedness. My wife has been sexually harassed at work. Now, this was earlier in my life when I didn't have the education on what it was to be a tailor-made man. And so it was early in my life, early in our marriage, within the first year of our marriage, actually, the first year of our marriage, when my wife was still working outside of the home. And she was subjected to that. And the man that I am now, which is, I'm not a finished product, but I'm a more tailor-made man. Mm-hmm. That was a young boy who was still, you know, learning in many respects.
Right.
But there's no way that would happen to the man that I am today. So we can't be absent as a father, and we can't be absent as husbands, you know, in this climate with sexual harassment and the Me Too. We got to be there to protect our daughters, be able to protect our wives, and being a tailor-made man is the solution to that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. And I wanted to add one more thing, which I said before we went live, was when you ask the question, we bring up the R. Kelly example. I mean, this was earlier this year. We were hearing stories that he even had women who were living with him. And, you know, there was even questions about them, you know, being kidnapped, not able to leave. It was very, you know, it was very bizarre. You know, really, it was bizarre. But even if they were there, you know, with willingly there, right, and their parents knew they were there as well, the question did come up for me, well, why would anybody have their child go to R. Kelly's house? And even if they're going to R. Kelly's house, let's face it, he's been in the music industry, he's seen some success. So if your daughter's a singer, you know, she's associated with him and you want to support her, and yeah, I mean, I'm really stretching it here. Because my daughter is a singer, but she's not going to R. Kelly's house. But my point, though, is, you know, I'm trying to follow the train of thought and what could have possibly happened. I still have questions about, you left them there unattended, or there are too many unanswered questions. And for me, it always comes back to what father would do that. And even if there was no father, does she have an older brother? Because the thing for me is I have so many layers. If my daddy's not coming for you, my husband's not coming for you, my brothers are coming for you. If they don't come, my uncles are coming for you. You know, it's like so many layers of men who absolutely would defend and protect me. So that always hurts me when I see women that are out there and nobody's coming for them. That for me is very bothersome. But the other thing that I wanted to really interject.
Well, before you move on, if I could, yeah. I mentioned it, but I want to make sure I emphasize and stress enough. Also, if the father was there, the first line of defense, and instilling the value, because we can't be there all the time.
Right.
But if you've done the proper job in instilling what she values, she's not drawn to that. My daughter loves singing.
Right.
But we have continual conversations, and it's not, a lot of times people talk about, having the talk with your daughter or your son. It's not the talk. It's not a singular isolated incident where, okay, she's starting to get to a certain age now. We need to have the talk about sex and, make sure boys is one time. Every situation that we have, if the TV's on and something happens on the TV, now I'm going to talk immediately. Kayla, what do you think about that? Well, what, is that appropriate to talk? If when we're at the NCA&T homecoming parade and, certain cheerleading troops are dressed one way and the other was dressed another, what do you think about how they dress? Mm-hmm. So, and every opportunity, so it's got to be constant. Don't you ever, you hear something on TV, don't you ever let a young man talk to you that way. Don't you ever put yourself in a situation, and it's constant over and over and over. So again, I can't stress enough that the father's there to instill the value of it, because you can't be there all the time. If you instill the value properly, you're putting the odds in your favor. So,
that's the same thing with me and my dad. He wasn't there all the time, but I would actually paradoxically say he was there all the time.
He was there in your ear.
Yeah, up here.
Back in your
he was. Yeah. To this day, sometimes I hear myself say things verbatim that he said to me. But the other element that I was going to say, talk about was the importance of building generational wealth. And, a lot of people don't want to recognize this, but one of the reasons why a man would let his daughter go to R. Kelly's house is the promise of a paycheck, right? Because the thing is, when my husband and I are building our financial future and that of our children and future generations and so forth, some of what we're saying to each other and what we understand is we're doing this now so our children, more specifically our daughters, don't have to be led away by the promise of a paycheck. You see, that should be removed from the equation. But when you're hungry, starving, struggling, poor, lacking, or whatever it is, a paycheck becomes a much, much more prominent thing in your day-to-day and what you're looking for and what will lead you away or draw you away. And also, as a man, I don't make a habit of telling men what they should or shouldn't do or what have you, but I do think it's important that you should be in a position to say, look, I know you want the opportunity, but I can adequately take care of you as my child, that you don't have to go out and beg R. Kelly for an opportunity or whatever it is. Maybe she won't be glitzy and famous and all these other things, but she's well provided for and she has, some wealth that she's going to inherit or whatever, or some investments or something, or some other ways that she can make money or that she can do things and realize her potential and her skills and whatever else without having to put her life and reputation, quite frankly. Once you hear somebody went to R. Kelly's house, I mean, that already starts something else. But that's one of the things that I feel like that isn't talked about enough, is that, a lot of people are struggling and so, that's why they end up in bad situations.
You said a complete, mouthful. There's so much valuable things. And I want to start with what a word that you chose. I'm listening intently to your language pattern, and you talked about providing adequately. And this goes back to value, a value structure, a value system, So would we love to, all of us to increase our financial state? Sure, of course. But marriages don't break down. This is against popular belief. They don't break down because of financial problems. They break down because of misplaced value and misplaced expectations. Because rarely do people not have enough finances to have an adequate standard of living. You may desire more and want to have luxury, and nothing wrong with that. But if we can have a value where I want to be provided for adequately, first and foremost, and if luxury comes, I'll strive for it. It'd be great. It will add to my life for sure. But my value isn't placed in that. By no means am I financially rich. My wife and I would do okay.
But I'm extremely, I don't know.
I'm extremely wealthy, right? There's levels to it. Right? If everything that I've ever done, like, I don't have a job and have to answer to somebody. My wife doesn't have a job, and we get a chance to have, a few peak life experiences, once, twice, 3 times a year. if my life never gets better than that, I have very aggressive goals of upgrading, what I drive and where I live and being able to do, do some amazing things.
Right.
But if life never gets better than I don't have a job, my wife don't have a job, and once, twice a year we get a chance to go somewhere, kind of cool with the family. Like that, it's worth it. I wouldn't trade that lifestyle for millions of dollars and the crap that a lot of people in Hollywood deal with.
Right.
And the mental instability and the substance abuse to cope with all of. I wouldn't trade. Why? Because my value is a different place.
Right.
So so that's very, very key.
Absolutely. And I have the same experience, or at least a similar experience. We used to both work, my husband and I, and by work I mean get up, get dressed, go to somebody else's, whatever, and have you. And we had a great lifestyle. We still have right now, but earlier in our marriage, it was very financially driven. Like that was placed on high value. But, as we began to increase our family, we started to realize that, wow, there's more to this than just driving for those paychecks. We have to kind of spread this out, and start to redefine success. Because going back to what you were saying about the Tailor Made Man, it's not about just having that big paycheck and winning publicly and losing. I think you use different words, but
public success and a private failure.
Public success and a private failure. But unfortunately, a lot of people are living those lives where, they look great on paper, or not even on paper, in public.
On Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. But they're not winning in the background. And for me, when you talked about excellence earlier on, it really resonated. I had to come to terms, I was putting my hand up and waving when you said my wife used to be that strong woman. Yeah. Man, I used to be a loser wife, okay? And my kids were very small. I was a loser mom. I'm okay with saying it because that was a turning point in my life where I realized, wow, I'm a total deadbeat. Winning at work. I'm climbing that corporate ladder. My checks have doubled, tripled. And I was in sales. They could do anything. The checks could do anything, right? But I had to get to a point where I had to not necessarily succeed only in private, but bring it home, and succeed here first. Now, once that was established, it's been 5 years since I stopped working. I'm starting to realize that, okay, if I only win here, I don't care if I don't win out there. I have many avenues that I explore in terms of, I'm a business coach. So making money to me is not that hard. But I make much less money than I could if I just dumped the husband and dumped the kids and just focused on that, you see. But there's that idea that you have to be successful in a way that you can live with, right? And in a way that's sustainable and that has integrity and that can holistically that is holistic. That's a better word. Yeah, that is just holistic.
Yeah, and when we're talking about success, we have to define what the goal is and the target is. And so, it goes back to what you're saying about generational success and setting up for, the future generations. Because why? Your value system. Yeah. So when your values, and that's what we've been talking about here, are set up where it's about more than just finances or money, it's about having an adequate standard of living and more if you can, but really propelling the next generation. Because I agree with you. I don't think we'll see the apex of our community and our people as a whole across the globe being where we deserve to be in our lifetime. I do anticipate seeing tremendous strides, and I want to see tremendous strides, but the further out your vision is, the more successful you'll be. Highly unsuccessful, chronically poor people thinking day to day, what am I going to eat today? They're standing on the side of the road with a sign, thinking about where they're going to sleep tonight. And then broke people are thinking week to week. And middle class are thinking month to month. I got to pay the bills this month. And we know successful people are thinking year to year, 5 years down the road. But if we're going to succeed collectively, we have to start thinking even beyond, okay, I got a 5-year plan. That's great. That's awesome. But what is your generational plan? You have other coaches and communities where they're thinking generationally. And so we're not going to be able to completely absolve all of the issues in one generation. So we have to have the family intact to be able to build, pass down generational success. what's the point of building up some great business? You know, if you're trying to be holistic and you're trying to have generational success, when you have a breakdown, you know, in family, and your marriages are broke down, or you're not even married, and you have 5 children with 4 different baby moms, like what's the family that you're turning over to the next generation? Right. And so, like, even when we see, you know, the Kevin Harts of the world who had a family and then was having an affair with the woman, and then marries the woman he's having an affair with, divorces his other wife, and now he's cheating on her on the, right, in his you know, his mistake, which again speaks to character, okay? Because the way he described it, the mistake that he saw was, well, I'm at a place in my life where, in his words, I feel like I'm a target, and because of that, I need to be smarter. So not because it's the right thing to do, not because you want to be a man of character, not because you want to custom design every area of your life and have generational success in mind, but because you're a target. That's why you need to, like, right. Right. So this is the mindset. This is the mindset that is putting him on a trajectory, which I hope is not the case for him. I'm not going to speak to him, brother, but the way things are looking, if something doesn't change, he's on a trajectory to have 3 or 4 wives. And now this company that he's built in Heartbeat Productions, how do you even pass that on successfully to the next generation if you have broken families this way? So, you know, if it's about creating legacy, I do want to, you know, kind of make a plug, if you will. One of my mentors is Joe Dudley, you know, Dudley Hair Care products. You know, a lot of people know that. And he's got a tremendous story. His mentor was Sam Fuller, who had Fuller products. This is a man that in the 50s, a black man that took $25 and turned it into a $10 million company. Wow. He mentored Joe Dudley, who took $5 and turned it into a $30 million company. And now his daughter, Ursula Dudley, is now running that company. And these men were married. They had families, you know, that were intact to be able to pass something on in generations. And we don't even know the lineage. There's so many people that came from Joe Dudley's mentorship, you know, from the creators of Ebony Magazine to Bob Johnson, so many different people that came from that tutelage. But these were men who had not only successful business, but they were holistic and also their family life, and they were to preserve something through legacy. So I want to do a shameless plug if I can for him, because he has this foundation, Fuller Dudley Foundation. And if you go to fullerdudleyfoundation.org, they have a legacy preservers campaign that's about preserving the legacy of entrepreneurship, which we don't have in our community. And so with this legacy preservers, you know, the idea just comes to mind, because how do we have legacy if we have broken families? Right. So I just really applaud what they're doing with the Fuller Dudley Foundation, and they set an example even through their own experience.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because another word that you used was community. So it wasn't just about him and his, you know, his wife and his children. It's almost like a fork or a tree or branches, and it branches out into his community where he affects other people. And that ultimately is essentially what we're talking about. Is, you know, I know that somebody's going to think that we're saying money's not important, but the truth is it is important. It's one of the reasons why people get up every single day and fight traffic and do all these things. So it's not that we're trying to pretend like it's not important. And also, if we're going to have any real impact and any real influence, it does require financial stability. So I just don't want us to kind of feel like to kind of come across like we're saying that it's not important, because it is. You know, when you want to influence a political figure in your own community, it requires money to put that person into office, whether you like it or not, or whether you look at it as a straight line or not. And the thing is, the more financial stability you have, and the more your family has, and the more your community has, the more of an impact you have. And the same thing goes back to when we used poor him, you know, the R. Kelly example, and said, why would a man send his child to another man's house? Well, because they need a paycheck, and you know, that's what they see as the low-hanging fruit, and so on and so on. So we do want to say that it's a holistic thing. You know, it's not just one thing, but it again also goes back to our original, starting point where we're talking about the Tailor Made Man, it was intriguing to me. When I heard it, I was like, oh, I want to hear more about that. And it's almost exactly what I thought it was. It was about recognizing that manhood has many different layers and many different principles, values, and things in it that we are forgetting and we need to be reminded of, and we need to have it instilled in our boys. I have two sons. We need to have it as a standard as women and instill that in other women. And I'm excited about that future and, associating with people who have that understanding or that purpose or that mission, and they're going out into their businesses, into their communities. That's how they're building families. I'm excited about that.
No, I'm really excited about it as well. And if I could just draw, one more example of the importance of this, we talked about a lot of different things here. And when we talk about the sexual misconduct, from a pedophilia, standpoint with like the R. Kelly example, or even the breakdown of the family that is addressing or hindering rather the generational success from, like Kevin Hart putting his future generational success in danger because of infidelity. Mm-hmm. Going back to the Me Too, element, and men, we got to really, really, really understand, Black men, that our character it has to be impeccable. It has to be impeccable and excellence, uncompromising in quality, because we're not going to be judged at the same standard. I'm hesitant in bringing this up because I am anyway, because I'm hesitant to bring this example up because I don't want it to come across as if this is a bad person or anything of that nature. But, LeBron James, he's got something that's kind of going on right now with him being in the DM of some model, if you will, on Instagram. And I don't want it to come across as if, we're sensationalizing or jumping on any type of bashing bandwagon. One, because I'm a huge fan of LeBron James, okay? Because, to reach the level of success, not only on the court, but off the court in business and things that he's doing, he's speaking out on issues like Jordan never did. And by the way, he's better than Kobe and Jordan too, so I'm a huge fan. But he's just a great example. Regardless of what you think about him on the court or whatever, you don't hear about criminal elements or anything of that nature. So I'm a huge fan. Simultaneously, okay, with that said, this is an example. So I'm bringing it up because it's a teaching moment that he's worked so hard to have a incredible reputation as a man of character. He's a family man. He's got a wife. And in just one small area of a breakdown, and even if what he did was innocent from what he said, it was pretty benign in what he said. He asked the girl about hunting. Now, while he's DMing her about hunting and he's married, that's another question, right? But that's not the point. The point is you have to have your character so impeccable that you don't even have the misconception of impropriety.
Right.
Because if we go back to Emmett Till, he got murdered and brutalized because of whistling at a white woman. So now in this climate where everybody is talking about sexual harassment is the issue of the day, we know they're going to treat Black people differently than they treat white people. Don't even be caught whistling at a white woman, digitally whistling in her DM. So even if it's not a criminal thing, and by no means, please hear me clearly, I'm not making a comparison to what LeBron James is dealing with and sexual harassment or rape or, any of those type of things. But the standard of the tailor-made man has to be that high, right, with those things in mind. So the value of family, the value of marriage, the value of being a successful man, those are the type of things, that we talk about with the tailor-made man, recognizing that men who are married, they live longer, they have better sex, they have better health, they have better, finances, their business. So many metrics that you can measure that men don't even know about. And so we're going to talk about that from a holistic standpoint and really raise the level of expectation and the standard for manhood amongst men. And we're going to do that in every area of life. I'm really excited about it. So thanks for, being able to allow me to share and
I love it.
Talk with you on this.
Yeah, thank you so much for kind of bringing it home and really putting it in context and how it applies and how it can go wrong if you don't set the right standards and hold yourself to, you know, nobody's perfect, obviously, but maybe Mr. James is gonna, LeBron James is gonna, you know, recognize that even just a slight imperfection can cause you more trouble than it's worth. So
Right.
I do want to say thank you, James, and give you an opportunity to let our audience know where they can find out more about you.
Absolutely. Well, they can contact me if they feel so directly via email at james@jamespennjr.biz. That's PENNJR.biz. And of course, follow me on social media. Marriage by Design is on Facebook, The Marriage by Design, facebook.com/The Marriage by Design. And of course, the Tailor Made Man, which is in the process of launching right now. Well, depending on when you're seeing this, you know, you can start just following and getting connected with the community. You have some very, very exciting things in store for 2018. So you can follow that at on Facebook. Just search the Tailor Made Man and connect with us there. And I look forward to.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that develops. You know, I've been doing a lot of stuff. I'm only actually a business coach really for women. So I do a lot of stuff for women. So I like to see other brands and other coaches or other people online doing something specifically for men because I think we need it. And when we all come together, it's remarkable what can happen. So again, thank you so much, James. I want to say thank you to our audience. It's been a great segment. I really enjoyed myself. I believe I learned a lot as well. Intellectual chocolate is where brilliant Black people come together. And I believe we did that today. So thank you, James, and thank you, everybody.